committed to building South Africa. And our job here in the Western Cape, with the mandate that we have in the province, is to make the Western Cape succeed so that South Africa can succeed. And as you know, there are 9 special economic zones designated around the country. 7 have already been done. We're one of them, and today that designation happens. And it's amazing how much work has to go in between 3 spheres of government before we can actually take the plunge. And today is the plunge. Now, when I became a Premier, I didn't know what a special economic zone was, so I'm just presuming that there are lots of people here who may not know either. And a special economic zone is an area in which business and trade laws are different from the rest of the country. That means there are a lot of incentives to encourage businesses to invest in a particular area. And we are delighted that Atlantis has achieved that designation because we have been working towards this goal for many, many years. It is time that Atlantis stops being the stepchild of job creation in the Greater Cape Town area, and with this step, Atlantis becomes the very nub of the new economy. A long time ago, we in the Western Cape said which economic sectors are going to get this economy to grow and create jobs. Number 1 priority of South Africa, create jobs. That doesn't happen without investment. Investment doesn't happen without confidence in the future. Confidence in the future does not happen without clean, capable government that is doing its job properly. And so we were absolutely committed to create a context for investment and growth, and we chose 3 sectors: agriculture and agri-processing, tourism, and the entire energy economy, with a particular emphasis on green economy, which includes liquid natural gas. And we worked very hard in the Western Cape to remove all blockages to investment in that sphere, and I think the investment of wonderful companies like Gestamp, whose factory we have just seen, it's very imposing. They manufacture those amazing wind towers, the size of which you can hardly imagine until you actually see them, and many other companies here in the Western Cape. And things looked wonderful for green energy a couple of years ago. And then, with policy uncertainty, things looked dire, and people who made an investment came to the conclusion that they may have made a mistake. And we saw layoffs and a whole range of other things. Now, Mr. President, and after our brief chat today, I really do believe that policy certainty will return, and that the load shedding we've seen, the crisis that Eskom is in again, will be turned into the opportunity that it can be to unleash the green economy into pumping renewable energy into our grid at now a cheaper rate than coal energy costs, so that we can really fire up this new economy and give the great potential that the Atlantis Special Economic Zone has an opportunity to be realized. So what I would like to stress today is that government has to create the environment. And the Special Economic Zone is supposed to put that on steroids. And in the green economy particularly, this crisis should be the greatest opportunity. But we sit in the catch-22 of Eskom having so much international debt that if they go down, the South African economy goes down. And so they have to continue the stranglehold over feed-ins into the grid, which in turn is a stranglehold over the green economy. And it's that conundrum that government has to resolve to create the opportunities and the climate for investment. And that is our job. Gestamp and many other international investors are completely willing to come here. We support local procurement. They have to be able to manufacture in a context and in a climate where government removes blockages from that process. Still yesterday I had a presentation in our cabinet where we're saying, okay, jobs, 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 the top priority. The very next slide is all the policies that create a barrier to jobs. And if we are serious about jobs, we've got to get rid of those barriers and be honest about what they are, no matter the political cost that attends them. Because if we continue to have 50% youth unemployment in South Africa, there won't be any other political cost that is bigger than that. So we stand ready, Mr. President, as the Western Cape government, as Westrow, that puts so much energy into growing the economy, and the pun is intended, and most particularly to Green Cape, that has really driven and pioneered our progress in the green economy. And the reason they've been able to do that, Mr. President, is that they're an entity of the provincial government which frees them up from a lot of the red tape so they can get the green investment going. And that is absolutely critical to understand that, and that is what they've been able to do. So we in government, while we're here congratulating ourselves today, have a lot of introspection to do about all the barriers to investment, all the barriers to innovation, all the barriers that make it impossible for government to encourage entrepreneurs and innovators, because our rules of procurement are so tight that they work on things that we understand from 10 years ago and 20 years ago, not the way the future is changing and the new models that it's producing. And so we should do a lot of introspection today. It's a day of celebration, a day of looking at what is possible, but so much more is possible if we reduce and remove the blockages to investment and job creation. That is our message to the Western Cape today, Mr. President. Thank you very much for being here. As we were standing at the Gestamp factory, there was a long, dark wind tunnel. The President and I were standing in front of it. I looked down it, and I saw a tiny little light at the end of that tunnel. And if you look on Twitter, you will see I've posted the picture. And right at the end of that tunnel is a tiny little light. And I said, Mr. President, that is the symbol for South Africa today. We can't squander that light. It has to grow bigger and bigger. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Premier Helen Zille. I think the language is the same. I think the approach is the same. I think the commitment to ensuring that we create a conducive environment in South Africa for ensuring that we have more and more jobs. The language is the same, and you are saying there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and the reason why we are here today is to make sure that that light shines on everybody, and that light shines on your small and medium enterprises. That light shines for the investors who are supposed to be coming to South Africa. And I do think, Mr. President, you are carrying that torch, you are carrying that light. Can I then now call upon Batitumami? Yes. Can I now call upon Minister Davis to introduce the President? Thank you.
Thanks, Program Director. May I recognize the President, the Premier, my two ministerial colleagues, Minister Zulu, Minister Patel, the MECs that are here present from the provincial government. Can I also then just add a few, because I think it's important to recognize both the Director General of the Department of Trade and Industry and the Deputy Director General, Cyril Ramaphosa, who comes from the division that actually deals with the rollout of special economic zones. John Fobbs, the Chair of the Portfolio Committee, Then I think very importantly, the local business community, the local community, and organised labour and members of the press and everyone who's here present. This is a very important occasion, I think, for all of us. It's the culmination of quite a long journey, and I just want to mention a bit of that. Back in 2012, I think we recognised that there was a need to broaden the concept of special economic zones in this country from the original idea of establishing only industrial development zones. We understand special economic zones as areas where concentrated economic activity takes place around some specific business proposition that is able to attract investment and deliver the jobs that are necessary. That can be something more than access to a port and the support for export-orientated industries. It can be other concepts as well, and this particular SEZ, I think, reflects that. Back in 2012, in the MINMEC, the Minister MEC meetings, we said to the provinces, as we work to change our legislation, can the provinces all work around the development of one or two particular projects that could be the subject of a broader concept of SEZs? So the legislation itself was passed in 2014, and that piece of legislation, for which I think we need to thank the Portfolio Committee, empowers us to proclaim SEZs based on concepts like this one, the rollout of green technology and green industries. So, as has already been mentioned, up to now we now have 9 special economic zones in this country, but actually it's 10 because yesterday, on Wednesday, Cabinet approved the 10th, which is the Nkomazi SEZ in the Mpumalanga province. And in the original round of the programs that we had from the MINMEC meeting, we still have 4 more to go. So this is one of the important SEZs. Now, Mr. President, the Act requires, as the Premier was indicating, that there are quite a few processes that have to be gone through. The viability of the SEZ has to be established. And that has to be established not by us as government, but by an SEZ advisory board. They have to look and see, does it have a value proposition? They have to go through all of that. Our learnings about special economic zones, and they include the fact that we have a partnership with MOFCOM in China, and that our teams have gone there and learned extensively. Our learnings tell us that special economic zones do require ongoing partnerships. They require, first of all, that there is a sustainable and significant and substantial business proposition around the area concerned. Secondly, that there is the construction of the infrastructure that's going to support the economic activities. Thirdly, that you provide an incentive package so that investors will have better terms and conditions if they invest in the special economic zone than elsewhere in the country. And thirdly, because none of the rest will work without the third element, that there is an active promotion of the investment opportunities by the actual people who run the SEZs. So the DTI will continue to be involved in this as in other SEZs through the provision of incentives that will support the top structure, particularly of the factories or business facilities that will be established inside the SEZ. And there will also be available incentives for new investors that come into the SEZs. But we depend also on the ongoing efforts of the team from the local community or the local province that have been designated to be the actual runners. And today we will be of the project. So today we will be handing over the operating license. In addition to the advice of the SEZ Advisory Board, there has to be a process of public consultation. There's been extensive public consultation that's gone on about this Atlantis SEZ. I had the opportunity to participate in a number of activities myself and hear the views of the community. And one of those was an event that was organized by my colleague, Minister Patel, in his capacity as the deployed ANC MP here. And I went to a public meeting that he organized, and I heard that the community were well informed about this SEZ. They had studied the law. They knew what the preamble said. They knew what the intention was. And they were determined, and they told us in no uncertain terms, that they wanted to see this SEZ deliver results that were felt not just by the big investors that may come here. They wanted to see this felt by the local community, and not just in job opportunities, but also in business opportunities as well. That's what they told us. And so I think that what's very important to note is that the terms of the license include two quite important conditions. And first of all, we've said that the SEZ board needs to have representation from the community and organized labor on it. And I'm told that the processes of nominating are well advanced. But I do want to say one thing. We will expect, and we will oversee, and we will make sure that this happens. We will expect that the community person who is represented here is there to represent the general interests of the community and not whatever particular business interests they may be carrying themselves. They're there to represent the community as a whole. And the second condition is that local community and small, medium and micro enterprises must be prioritized in the SEZ's job creation and empowerment program. Now, that is something. But as the DTI is expected to roll out its incentives, we will be expected to see those two quid pro quos delivered on. And I can say that in the industrial park program which we run, we do on each occasion ensure that local SMEs are involved in the construction. That's what we want to see here. So that the SEZ program is not something that just means something to a few big investors, but also means something to the local community. That's what we will be doing as part of our ongoing partnership, and we look forward to this partnership delivering jobs, empowerment opportunities, community benefits, and the community feeling that it has a stake in the rollout of this SEZ. Now, Mr. President, I am, the next part of my task is to introduce you. And of course, nobody has come here today to see any of the rest of us who've spoken. They want to hear you. I know that you are a hard taskmaster on this SEZ program. You don't want us to be passive, hand over a license, that's the end of the story. You want there to be an active developmental partnership around the SEZ. Mr. President, I think sure the community wants to hear you. It's my pleasure to invite you to speak. Thank you.
Honorable Minister Lindiwe Zulu, Minister of Trade and Industry Rob Davis, Minister of Economic Development Ibrahim Patel, Ms. Joan Fobbs, Honorable Member of Parliament and Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry, our Honorable Premier of the Western Cape, Ms. Helen Zille, the Mayor of my city, Cape Town. Did you hear that? I said my city. Mr. Dan Plato, members of Parliament who are here, MECs who are here, and of course, business leaders, who are here as well, and all honorable guests. I must say that it's a real pleasure for me to be here today at what one would call a new era for the community of Atlantis. The Atlantis Special Economic Zone, which we're launching today, is an integral part of our effort to reignite economic growth, not only here in Atlantis and not only here in the Western Cape, but throughout our country, where we seek to attract investment and also to create jobs, and meaningful and sustainable jobs. We know that without significant investment, as well as economic growth, we will not be able to create work for the people of this province and for the people of this town without higher rates of investment, which we so sorely need to be able to create the work that our people need. We have therefore embarked on a range of measures to mobilize investment into our economy, but more importantly, as we mobilize investment, we are having to deal with the problems and the challenges that arose in the past few years, especially the last 9 years, where uncertainty was the order of the day, where bureaucratic constraints were the order of the day, and where policy certainty was not present. This is what we are seeking to do as we mobilize investment in our country. The challenges and problems that we have had in the recent past are being addressed right now. And as the Premier was talking about seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, she tells the truth, but in some parts not the complete truth. Because initially she saw one light, and I said, Premier, look carefully, there are two lights. And I said, there are the two lights. And both of us confirmed that we want to see the lights at the end of the tunnel get brighter and bigger and fill the entire tunnel that we were being shown. So, Premier, I ask you to join me in opening your eyes and seeing those two lights at the end of that tunnel. Now, we're working to direct that investments should come to various parts of our country, here in Atlantis, here in the Western Cape, and throughout our country as a whole. Now, the Special Economic Zones program has been identified as one of the very important and critical economic policy instruments for promoting industrialization. The 9 SEZs, and now the 10th one with the Nkomazi one in Mpumalanga, that have been designated as part of this whole program, have several important features about them. They are located in areas both in need of investment, but they are also located in areas where there is great opportunity for growth and development. They are being established close to where our people live, That for us is very important, that our people should not have to travel for hours and hours getting to work. They should work close to where they live. And this is what this SEZ offers the people of Atlantis. And they're also being established where there is often deep poverty and where there is the greatest need to create jobs. And at the same time, these sites where we are rolling out all these SEZs have been selected for their proximity to ports, to logistic nodes and hubs, and to related industries for raw materials. And most of the SEZs focus on certain specific industries, encouraging the development of clusters of suppliers as well as service providers. And by concentrating industrial value chains in these areas, collaboration, cooperation, and working together is therefore encouraged, and by so doing, we are then able to significantly reduce the costs that are inherent as you set up these manufacturing entities. So these SEZs can contribute much to reshaping the special landscape of the apartheid economy that we inherited. But importantly, these SEZs are also beneficial to us as a country, as a region, and as a local town, in that they are able to attract foreign investors as well as domestic direct investment into the productive economy through a range of benefits. But they also have another added advantage in that our emerging companies, our emerging black-owned and controlled companies are then able to find a space and an opportunity to germinate and to grow and to begin to fly. So the SEZ program is also supported, as we set them up, by a competitive incentive package. As government, we have decided that as we set up these SEZs as key economic drivers, we want to incentivize businesses to come and invest here in these areas. And our incentives range from tax, from setting up the infrastructure, from giving them a whole range of other incentives that also deal with employment. And as the Premier was saying, they are set up in such a way that they are exempted from some of the general laws that apply in the country. So they have a very special role to play, and it is this role that we must capitalize on. These special zones are therefore key to unlocking our country's competitive as well as comparative advantage, because they are, in my view, are meant to be launching pads of real economic growth, but they also become launching pads for all of us who either live here in this town, either as workers, as community members, as well as businesses. In China, they use special economic zones to catapult their economy to higher and greater levels of growth. One of the first that they set up was Shenzhen. Shenzhen used to be a very old and tired fishing town or village. Today it's a metropolis that has easily more than 18 million people living there. And it is a key driver in the economic development and growth of China. So from an SEZ, you would have the opportunity to use the SEZ as a launching pad to build a bigger town, a city, and a metropolis. And this, the people of Atlantis, is what this SEZ has as potential. You are sitting on a great potential launching pad, which I would like you to use, because through this, as we set it up, we're then able to attract investors who can come here. And as investors come, and as we see that there's greater interest from the business community, we as government will respond with more and more incentives to inject further growth in the economy of Atlantis. So Atlantis must therefore look at this as a great opportunity which our government is putting on display, and say, utilize it to launch yourselves into being a bigger town, into being a city, and into being a metropolis. And maybe one day you'll be able to be even bigger than Den Plato's Cape Town as well. Imagine that. Imagine that. So this program, which many people in our country haven't really focused attention on, this Special Economic Zone program, and we've got 10 now, and the 9 that we've got are growing by leaps and bounds. And we as government are continuing to incentivize the growth of those SEZs. As Minister Zulu was saying, through the stimulus program that we announced, we've also said that we want to focus on the growth of our SEZs, because we see them as areas, as places, as launching pads of real economic growth. And so far, this program has managed to generate 11.6 billion rand worth of private investments. That is significant. And that is something that we should recognize. That is something that we should be proud of. I want to see this growing and doubling. By next year, I want to hear that it has gone to 23 billion. By the following year, I want to hear that it's gone to 46 billion. And this is what I have set out for the ministers here. That is their performance target. That is what this country needs right now. Now we've got to dream big. We've got to set our targets high. But at the same time, there are a number of things that we've got to do, some of which were touched on by the Premier, some of which were touched on by Minister Zulu and Minister Davis. And many of you were telling me some of these things as we were walking around the plant. The business leaders, the managers, and the shareholders of some of the plant that we were in. And we are listening, because you are saying, Mr. President, give us certainty on policy. Make sure that policy is not going to change every week or every month as it has been the case in the past few years. And to that I say, I promise you, policy is not going to be changing every week. We are going to make sure that there is policy uncertainty. We are going to make sure that we are able to create a conducive environment for businesses to grow, for investors to come and invest here. Already, there have been almost 115 operational investors in the various SEZs that we have set up by the end of the second quarter. So investors are flocking to these SEZs. They are coming in their great numbers, and we welcome that. As we develop these zones, we need to be expanding the range of our own ambitions and our own dreams, but matching that with what we do as government to stabilize the regulatory framework, to make sure that we do create a conducive environment for investors to come. Because we need to see these zones as real manufacturing hubs. Many of us have been talking about creating and growing the manufacturing capability of our country and making sure that we reinvigorate manufacturing as we reindustrialize our economy. We need to seize the opportunities also as we reindustrialize our economy, the opportunities that are given to us on a platter by the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Recently at the African Union in Addis Ababa, where the 54 countries of Africa get together to regulate what should happen on our continent, they agreed that we should have an Africa broad and wide continental free trade area, meaning that we would like to see Africa trading with itself, Africa producing goods and services that will easily be traded within our own continent, so that the 54 countries in Africa should stop going to countries far ashore to go and buy goods that we can easily produce. To give you a good example, this morning I was taken through with the Premier and the ministers and everyone who was there. We're taken through the plant here that makes these towers for the turbines. And I asked them, are you able to export these to various countries in Africa? They say no, many African countries now are importing some of these towers or turbines from many other countries around the world. And I said, now that we have signed this free trade area for Africa, we now need to see Africa as our marketplace. We now need to see Africa as the place where we are going to be selling all the goods, these turbines that we are producing here. Now, one good example that I can cite. A few weeks ago, I went to launch a coach manufacturing plant in Ekurhuleni in Gauteng. Now, they manufacture coaches for our passenger trains that we also use here in the Western Cape are now being manufactured in Ekurhuleni instead of being imported from other places in the world. Now, the magic about it is that this opportunity was grasped by South Africa when the African Union said they would like to identify South Africa as the hub that will manufacture these coaches for the rest of the continent. Now, that has been accepted. It opens up great opportunity for our country. Now, as for instance, where we went today, where we are manufacturing these masts for the turbines, Africa has embraced the renewable energy program. Many countries on the African continent are now moving towards installing electrical power through renewable energy and utilizing wind power. And I'm saying this is a great opportunity that is out there for us, for this area of Atlantis, where we, as Atlantis, as the Western Cape, as South Africa, can now make wind turbines for the rest of the African continent. That is what we want. That is the opportunity that lies there. So the Atlantis SEZ itself, as having been conceptualized as an integrated sustainable economic development intervention, has the opportunity to be able to grasp the market in Africa. Now, I want to see the officials, the business people from Atlantis going throughout the African continent, going to sell product, coming back and saying we've got orders. We've got orders from the rest of the continent, and if they need help and support from government, we will be able to give them support, because they will have demonstrated to us that they have now taken the opportunity of the opening up of the African market. Africa is on the move, and South Africa cannot be found sleeping. We are an integral part of this continent. As this continent grows and marches ahead and grows economically, socially, and politically, we must be the engine that enables our continent to grow. Many countries around the world see South Africa as the gateway into the African continent. Atlantis must know that it is the real gate for growth on the African continent. Now, this is the opportunity that lies out there for us. And I'm saying, let us utilize it. Let us take it up. And the launch of this SEZ today is a culmination of an extensive consultation process and also technical evaluation. I am particularly pleased to know that there's been extensive cooperation between various spheres of government, as our mayor was saying here, that national government, provincial government, and local government cooperated to get us where we are. But more importantly for me, what has also ensued here is broad consultation at the level of other stakeholders, such as organized labor, such as business, and broader community. I've been briefed extensively by Minister Patel, who has spent many hours in the consultation process with various sectors of our community here. And in giving approval for the designation of this SEZ, Cabinet set out two main conditions. Firstly, that this SEZ must have community and organized labor representatives on the board of the entity. Now, that for us is important, that deep community involvement must be there, because the development and the growth of the economy here cannot take place without the participation of the community. And we took the message very seriously. Nothing about us without us. And that's how it should be. The second main condition was the local community and the small, medium enterprises must be prioritized. I repeat, must be prioritized in the job creation and the empowerment program. The SEZs are supposed to be the oases. They must be the growing ground, the fertile ground for small and medium enterprises. Now, on this, many of us have been well schooled by Minister Zulu. When she wakes up, she thinks about SMMEs. When she has breakfast, it's about SMMEs. When she combs her hair, it's about SMMEs. When she gets into the shower, it's about SMMEs. All the time, all day long, that's what she talks about. And she has schooled us very well She schooled us very well, but she has also schooled us about another matter, the empowerment of women in everything that we do. Now, that is important for us. The last time I checked, I found she's a woman. The last time I checked, I found the Premier is also a woman, and that is what we need to be focusing on. And that is what we want to see happening. But the other added important part is the youth. The youth of our country must never be left behind. That is exactly what we want to see. Now, we say all this to give meaning and to give life and to give content to our approach that people must be put first in everything that we do. And once we put our people first, we're then able to calibrate a wonderful circle of progress, a wonderful circle of development. I'm pleased to note that the process of ensuring community representation has gone extremely well. Now, as part of the drive that I've been involved in, together with Minister Davis, together with Minister Patel and Minister Zulu, and indeed the whole government, of ensuring that we attract $100 billion, which translates into, in today's exchange rate, it should be 1.4 trillion rand to come into South Africa. We are making sure that a part of that money must come here to Atlantis. We want to see it here. Now, when we were at this investment conference, a number of companies at this high-level investment conference in Gauteng, in Johannesburg, a number of companies were motivated as they saw the opportunities that are many in our country. They were motivated to come to the platform and to say they are going to invest a lot of money in our economy. One of those was Amazon, Amazon.com. That's where sometimes I buy my books from. Now, Amazon said they are coming to set up their operation here in the Atlantis zone. Now, that is fantastic. Now, we welcome this opportunity by Amazon and are confident that this will open up new opportunities, but it also opens up jobs, it also opens up skills, but more importantly, it also brings new technology. It brings innovation. It brings new ideas. As they bring their new technology, new ideas, we mix that with ours, our own local knowledge and know-how and technology, and we create something that is wonderful. The fundamental premise of the Atlantis SEZ is that it should be able to unlock the underlying economic value of existing and underutilized infrastructure that we have here. And this includes making sure that every piece of infrastructure that has been lying latent is unlocked, it's spruced up, it's presented to investors so that we can utilize it extensively. Now, its proximity, Atlantis's proximity to two ports in Cape Town and Saldanha, provides us great advantages to exporters. This zone is expected to grow the green tech sector in the Western Cape more broadly, and a revitalized Atlantis will be able to play a key role in the industrialization of this region. Now, I've been very pleased and impressed with the way that our Western Cape government has embraced the green economy and have even set up a unit that focuses on this. Now, that is fantastic. And as the Premier was saying, they have identified that as one of the key growth areas, in addition to others, agro-processing and tourism. Now, there's another company here, Gestamp, Renewable Industries, which we visited this morning, GRI. That's where I saw all these wonderful things. But I also saw some really fantastic things. I saw the best investment that our country is making on an ongoing basis. What did I see? I saw young people who have recently been trained as engineers, young people who were telling me, each time I met a young man or woman, I said, "What have you been trained in?" She said, "I am a metallurgist, and I've been trained as a metallurgist. I went to this university, I even got an MBA," and she looked me straight in the eye, and she said, "This is what this country has given me as a real gift, and today that's what I am." Now, and I met quite a number of young men who are also engineers, industrial engineers, mechanical engineers, and this is the real wealth. This is the real great advantage our country is able to demonstrate. Now, I stress this because in the past, if you went around many of these factories, all you would ever meet, and all these people are young, all you would ever meet are pot-bellied men with receding hairlines, white, most of them, all of them, and they were the only engineers. And today, we are producing smart, black, young people as engineers. And that is the progress that we are making in our country. Now, this company, GRI, has invested easily more than 400 million rand, and they have created 220 jobs here in Atlantis, and I saw some of the workers. Let's give them a round of applause for the work that they have been doing. And of course, there are other investors. Resolux with an investment of 25 million, K-Tech with an investment of 130 million, and Skyward Windows with an investment of 50 million, and the number just keeps growing. And in addition to have secured investments, Atlantis has an investment pipeline. And listen to this. The investment pipeline that's waiting, that is already in the pipeline coming here, is valued at 2.4 billion rand. That is going to come here. Now this is the opportunity that this SEZ is unlocking. And that is why I said at the beginning, here is a great launching pad for us here in Atlantis, in the Western Cape, in South Africa, to grow this place from being a town to being a city to being a metropolis, just like other countries have done. And I'm saying, let us utilize this great opportunity of this SEZ, because it can be a driver for economic growth. And this is where we want to see inclusive growth. We don't only want to see GRI growing on its own. We don't want to see some of these companies growing on their own. We want to see the small, medium enterprises also growing and succeeding and progressing and employing people. The opportunity that Atlantis has is enormous. In the short to medium term, the zone, this area, is projected to create over 1,400 extra jobs right here in Atlantis, And we are particularly pleased about that. Now, through manufacturing, job multipliers, it's estimated that the number of people who will be employed could rise to above 4,500 for the West Coast region. So we are looking at greater growth potential here. And the Atlantis Zone program clearly demonstrates that we can collectively achieve a lot when we take an integrated approach to economic development. And what we should also be focusing on, and this is the message I'd like to leave various players from small, medium enterprises, from all others who participate here, let us look out for more and more opportunities. And what we want to see is more and more localization. What we want to see is more and more products being made here, so that all of us can say, this piece of iron, this piece of grate, this piece of rope, this piece of sheet has been made here in Atlantis, here in South Africa. That's what we want to see. Now, as I walked through the factory, I kept asking, where was this made? It started off with my boots. See, when you go around these factories, they give you a hard hat to make you look more handsome. They give you hard boots to be safe. And I looked at the boots and I said, where were these boots made? Minister Davis looked at his and he said, mine were made in South Africa. I looked at mine, they're made in China. I said, oh, they're not so comfortable. I want boots that are made here in South Africa. This is what we should be focusing on. We should become, all of us as South Africans, we should become conscious economic players. I'd like us to raise our level of consciousness and understanding about the economy of our country and what drives the economy. We should be the people who say, we want to put South Africa not first, as number one. Trump says first, I say as number one. South Africa must be number one, because for every boot that is made here, we've created maybe half a job or one job. For every little apparel that is made here, we've created a job. Now, that is what we should be more and more conscious about, and ask ourselves, was this made here? Because those jobs should not be exported. We want those jobs here. As I went through GRI, I kept asking, where does the steel come from? And they mumbled some answer. And it's made from some other place in the world. And I said, we'd like the steel also to be made here. And it's important that we should send that message. Not aggressively, nicely and gently. It'll become more and more urgent as we go on. Because that is the level of consciousness that all of us must have. Because to create jobs, we need to boost our own manufacturing capacity and capability and make sure that things are made here. Granted, GRI has foreign shareholders, and we welcome them. And we want more and more foreign shareholders to come here, to come and invest money, because they bring technology, they bring know-how, they bring greater capability and all that. It's great that they should bring their investments here. At the same time, we want them to localize. So we want all these initiatives to take place here, and it is through partnerships that we will be able to succeed. And we want, therefore, to mobilize our collective resources so that we can turn various opportunities into financial gain and profit, but more importantly, into creating jobs. It is the interest of our people that we must put above all else. It is their well-being and their prosperity to which I have dedicated my efforts. I have dedicated my tasks in government to promote the interests of South Africans and not to promote the interests of any sectional group. And that, for me, is important. Now, one of the other things that impressed me was that one of the young men that I met in the factory, he's an engineer. He has been sent around the world, and he went to work in Texas and to go and show the Texans how to make these masts and to make these wind turbines. And he told me that he was able to demonstrate the wonderful skills that he has learned here. And that filled me with pride, because it is fitting into this whole process that we are seeing unfolding in our country. We've got a number of workers who make cars in our various factories in Port Elizabeth and East London, and also in Gauteng, who make cars so well, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota and all that, BMW, who at times are sent to Germany, are sent to various places in the world, and they go and demonstrate the skills that they have developed here in South Africa. And as they demonstrate that, they can show that they are equal to any other worker, any other engineer, and any other professional in the world. That is the strength that we have. Let us play on that strength. And I'm proud that it is here in Atlantis that I found skilled young people who are going to be able to drive this Atlantis Economic Zone to a higher level. Today, we therefore have an opportunity, a great opportunity, possibly an opportunity second to none, where we sit on the cusp of great economic growth here in Atlantis. And all I say to all of you, let us grasp this opportunity, let us utilize it, and let us grow this SEZ and make it the best SEZ in the whole country. Thank you very much.
All right, we're coming out of Atlantis in the Western Cape province, where President Cyril Ramaphosa has just launched yet another special economic zone as part of the government's...
To the next leg of today, and I would like to say, Mr. President, and echo your words, that yes, we are schooling each other on the importance of small and medium enterprises, and that it is those small and medium enterprises who will deliver on the jobs that are needed by South Africa. It is now my pleasure to request that the President hands over the Special Economic Zone's license to MEC Schaefer, and therefore I would call upon the MEC to come up onto the stage. Firstly, Mr. President, you will be joined by Premier Helen Zille and Minister Davis to unveil the plaque, which is right in front of us. Can protocol please give us direction? Where's the mic? Where's the mic?